During the reign of King Hezekiah, the land enjoyed a period of prosperity and righteousness, but after his death, Judah spiraled into a state of spiritual decay yet again. For 70 years God remained silent as the nation drifted away from him, succumbing to the allure of pagan practices and idol worship. King Manasseh in particular led Judah astray, promoting abominable acts such as child sacrifice to the worship of Moloch. His reign was deemed even more wicked than any of the Canaanites themselves. Now, to prevent Judah from suffering the same fate as northern Israel, exiled and devastation, God dispatched his prophet Zephaniah with a stern warning. Zephaniah's message echoed the sentiments of other prophets, emphasizing the impending judgment of the day of the Lord, a day of reckoning for Judah and its neighboring nations. Judah was surrounded by formidable enemies: Philistia in the west, Moab and Ammon in the east, Egypt and Ethiopia in the south, and in the far northern area was Assyria. Babylon at this time was a fairly insignificant power. These nations will be judged by God for their attitude towards his people in Judah. God controls everything, including the rise and fall of nations, and as we see in a few decades, God will be raising an insignificant power called Babylon to exact his punishment on a continuously defiant Judah. Yet amidst the warnings of impending doom, Zephaniah also conveyed a message of hope, just like most of the other prophets. God promised to gather the exiles, restore their fortunes, and bring them back to their homeland. Now, however, this promise was contingent upon the nation's repentance and cooperation with God. The prophet Zephaniah lamented Judah's idolatry and spiritual adultery, highlighting the abandonment of their covenant relationship with God. Even the religious leaders failed in their duties, allowing pagan practices to infiltrate the temple. Now, Zephaniah also addressed the threat posed by neighboring nations, all of whom would face God's judgment for the treatment of Judah. Now, despite the warnings and the offer of mercy, Judah remained obstinate. Within a few decades, they fell to Babylon, just as Zephaniah had foretold. And although the prophet's message carried a glimmer of hope, Judah's refusal to heed God's call ultimately led to their downfall. So Zephaniah's story serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us of the consequences of turning away from God. It underscores the importance of repentance, of obedience, and cooperation with God's plan for redemption. Just as God disciplined his people out of love, so too must we heed his warnings and align ourselves to his will today. Upon concluding the book of Zephaniah, one is left pondering the prophet's effectiveness. Sadly, history reveals that Judah remained obstinate, refusing to heed Zephaniah's warnings. And within a mere decade, Babylon conquered the nation, leading its people to exile, mirroring the fate of their northern brethren. Despite Zephaniah's efforts, the nation's heart remained hardened, and his mission to bring about repentance and renewal ultimately fell short.